Hello, everyone, and welcome to the program. This is Sunday Politics on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimaloye in Lagos. Over the past week, the issue of security in the country has taken the attention of everyone, and the way out is being sought in stopping the senseless killings. Today, the military says the Air Force component of Operation Lafiya Dole has killed scores of armed bandits in different airstrikes on bandits' hideout at the Kuduru forest area of Kaduna State. The military efforts on one hand, the political leadership is also considering ways of ending these bloodshed. The governors are meeting, and in the past week, they came up with positions on the way forward. Tonight, we have the governor of Ekiti State and the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Dr. Kayode Fayemi. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you so much, Governor Fayemi, for your time tonight. And I think that it will be good for us to get a sense of what came out of that meeting. At the end of your meeting last week, the Nigerian Governors Forum decided that they will meet with President Buhari to address security challenges across the country. When is this meeting, and what would you be telling the president?
Thank you very much, Sean, for having me on your program. Well, this meeting, it wasn't an emergency meeting. It was a routine meeting that held on Wednesday. And the number one issue on our agenda was insecurity in the country. A delegation of governors had just returned from Maiduguri after the mindless violence that resulted in the killings of the innocent farmers in the Mari village. And part of what we impressed upon the citizens and government of Borno State was that governors would take this up. It wouldn't be our first time of doing this. And we're almost grief fatigued, if you like, because this is not something that is happening for the first time. As I said, it's happened several times, and we will commiserate and send condolences to the families of the victims, and then advise on what we feel should be the way to deal with this. These problems are being felt mostly at the subnational level. That's where the people are. But security is on the exclusive list of our country. So it's something that is primarily handled at the level of the president and the security operatives at the professional level. So it's to reason that governors would decide to take their concerns to the president, which was why the meeting requested that I book a meeting with Mr. President so that all the 36 of us would actually be present, COVID-19 protocol permitting, to address these issues frankly and frontally with Mr. President.
Could you tell us when is this meeting expected to happen?
Well, the villa has not gotten back to me, but I'm sure in due course it would happen. It's certainly going to happen this week.
Great. Could you tell us the position of the governors on the security situation? What are you proposing as solution to the security problems?
Well, we have always believed that Mr. President has been doing his utmost. He has is not someone to lecture about the nature of the security problems. He has both his own knowledge and expertise, and the position that he holds also confers on him a huge amount of responsibility to deal with these issues. And I believe he's been doing that. However, there's no question that the best that we have done has not been good enough. This is not the only country where we've had insurgency. Insurgency was confronted in a country like Algeria, and it was brought to its knees when the FIS movement unleashed terror on the citizens of Algeria. Insurgency was also confronted in a country like Sri Lanka, when the Tamils Tiger were fighting a liberation struggle, and at the end of the day, good sense prevailed. The Tamils were crushed, and the country returned to normality. So we believe that we can tackle this, but that we need to deal with this in an unconventional manner. The insurgents are not fighting a symmetrical war. The war that we're dealing with in the Northeast is asymmetrical. You don't even know where the enemies are. They're mostly in the midst of our people, so you cannot use the strategy of a conventional war to deal with this. So you need to improve on intelligence. You need to then link intelligence to military operations in a most effective manner, and you need to work with neighbors, because it has become an international war of sorts that involves Chad, Cameroon, Niger, and clearly, even though we have a multinational joint task force, I do not believe that we have been working as cohesively as we should. And that's a position that we hold in the Governors Forum as well. The governor of Borno, our colleague, has been frontal about his position that a lot more needs to be done. The civilian JTF, who has been effective, needs to be integrated somewhat, because they have better intelligence sometimes on what is going on, because many of these elements are from Borno State there. And we also believe that the military has become somewhat overwhelmed as far as this insurgency is concerned, and that's understandable. They are involved in internal security now in almost 34 states out of the 36 states in our country, and that stretches them to its limit. They're trying, but is that enough? We're still losing people, and we need to really devise an immediate, short-term, and long-term strategy to deal with these. These are things that we'll be raising with the president. But in addition to that, we also believe that the entire framework of our internal security operations has to be reviewed. And some morale-boosting issues have to be brought to the fore as far as the leadership of the military is concerned. There's no question that governors also feel that service chiefs have done their best. They're the longest serving service chiefs we've had in the country, and frankly, there's nothing new that they're bringing to the table. They've done a lot in the course of the past 5 years that they've been in charge. The fact that they're still there is also affecting the morale of those who legitimately feel that they should be moving in the direction of the leadership. The Chief of Defense Staff is a Cost 25 officer. The Chief of Naval Staff is a Cost 26 officer of NDA. The Chief of Army Staff is a Cost 29 officer. The Major Generals that have just been promoted in the last few days, they are Cost 39, Cost 40. I mean, the distance is humongous, and it doesn't make for cohesion and a confidence building in the military itself. And we need to address that, in addition to addressing weapons for the military, because they don't have enough. I was in Maiduguri a couple of days ago. I could not see even an APC between the time I left the airport to the government house. And going even to the villages, you would find fewer APCs that are mostly owned by the police, not even the military. So there is clearly a question of weapons shortage that the military needs to address. There is a question of morale that has to be dealt with. There is a question of overarching military strategy that has to also be dealt with. The super camps that they've resorted to are no longer achieving the purpose that they ought to achieve. Some have suggested, like the governor of Borno State, that maybe it's time to revisit the issue of private military companies. I'm a bit leery about private military companies. I wrote a book about mercenaries 20 years ago, and I know that whilst they may be effective in the short term, it also carries its own implications, which may not be in the best interest of our military. But when people are frustrated, they would ask for all manner of solutions to the problems that are there. So I believe these are things that we'll place before the president, and given his wisdom, given his experience, and given the need to take some immediate action, I believe these are things that Mr. President would address when he visits the House of Representatives in the course of the week.
Some of the clarifications, of course, that I wanted to get with you is on the issue of the employment of mercenaries, which you've spoken about. It does look like you're not one who subscribed to it. And the other one was the issue of the service chiefs. For those who said they should go, it looks like you're one of those who think that it should go. But let's talk about the manner in which all these things are being handled. And some of your governor colleagues have voiced their opinion, and they are agitated about some of the issues. Several of your colleagues have recently clamored for restructuring of the country. Some of the governors voiced their frustration and blamed the situation on what they call the overbearing nature of the center, and they're asking for the devolution of power such that the federating units have more powers to control their territory. In fact, some of the governors have said they are just chief security officer of their state in theory. What are your views on some of these agitations?
Well, frankly, Sheun, nation building is a continuous process. The issue that is at hand now, the one we're discussing, has to do with the territorial integrity of Nigeria. This is a war that has crossed over our territory, and it is the central government that has responsibility. Even if you restructure Nigeria today, defense will still be on the exclusive list. Even if you devolve security operations, the ones that you probably devolve will be internal security. Even though this has dimensions of internal, it is regional, it is international. As I said earlier, it has involved countries like Chad, like Cameroon, like Niger. So you can't just limit it to a superficial understanding of devolution of powers. That may well be a case to deal with. And you know, as well as many people do, that I am a strong believer in devolution of responsibilities and resources to where government is closest to the people. I've never been apologetic about my position on that. That is also the position of the APC restructuring committee led by my colleague from Kaduna State, Governor Nasir El-Rufai. So that really is something that is cross-party. As far as governors are concerned, governors have always consistently argued that security institutions will be more accountable and will be more responsible if they are devolved to the lower end of governmental responsibilities. But what that then speaks to is not a diminution of the role of federal policing. It is a complementary addition of other levels of policing. So we've always talked about multi-level policing rather than an exchange of federal policing with state policing. No, federal policing will still be there dealing with federal crimes because there are crimes that are beyond the state. But at the local level, at the state level, there are also crimes that are exclusively state-based, and there are crimes that are local. So we're not even just suggesting state policing, but also local government policing, and even where possible, maybe even campus level policing for smaller institutions. That's been our position. It's not an exchange of federal for state. Federal will still be critical to maintaining internal security operations in our country.
I know that the term restructuring has been used loosely and generally, and it does mean different thing to different people. But for you, what does it mean, especially in the context of the problems that Nigeria is facing presently, the issues of security, the economic issues, and if we were to take up that task of restructuring Nigeria, where would you suggest or advise that we start from urgently?
Well, again, Sheung, I have been on record on this. Barely a month ago, I gave a lecture at the 50th anniversary of Ariwa House in Kaduna, and I spoke specifically about the question you've asked. And my definition of it is nation building is a continuous process, and we'll continue to fine-tune it. At this point in time, based on the experience that we've all had in Nigeria, it's time to reduce the number of items we have on our exclusive list to a few. And those few I specifically mentioned in my lecture in Ariwa House, which is defense, national security, the economy, customs and excise. And I also said every other thing that is not on that list should devolve to state. But in order for states not to suffer a tyranny of unfunded mandate, you don't just devolve responsibilities, you must also devolve resources. So you would need to change the framework for revenue allocation and distribution in our country on the basis of the shift that I proposed in my Kaduna Ariwa House remarks.
And so, do you think that is a matter that needs an urgent action from President Buhari or under the APC government as is currently constituted?
This is not an APC matter. APC is committed to devolution of responsibilities and resources. And we have gone on record both in the manifesto of our party in 2015, as well as the work that has been done by the El Rufai committee that I mentioned earlier, to specifically state what we believe. But I also know that many people, many public personalities, even in the opposition party, the PDP, don't necessarily disagree with us on this perspective that we hold. It's about ensuring that we improve on Nigerian benefit from this democracy. What does democracy mean to our people if it does not deliver the goods concretely to the doorstep of the citizens? And we will continue to review and refine the structure of the country in order to address those issues. That's why the constitutional reform process is on. Even if that is the position of APC, APC is not the National Assembly. We have members there, and we would encourage our members to take up issues that we have agreed on in our party. But the National Assembly is the body that is saddled with the responsibility to review the Constitution of Nigeria. And the process for doing that is clearly stated even in that constitution, the 1999 constitution as amended. And I believe that process has started in the National Assembly now. All we can do at the level of APC is submit our own memoranda to that committee and encourage our members that are there to push strongly for the position. And that, I believe, is the position of Mr. President as well.
We're due for break now, but quickly, for those who think that the president should declare a state of emergency on security situation in the country, what's your view? Do you think so?
Well, if a state of emergency were to be declared, I have no opinion on that. We haven't discussed a state of emergency as far as the Governors Forum is concerned. And that is not something that our colleagues who are at the receiving end of this problem have proposed to us. Governor Zulum or our Northeast colleagues have not said anything about a state of emergency. But what would a state of emergency do in concrete terms? I think we need to define that, and we need to understand what it allows us to do, because we are a signatory to international human rights protocols as well. A state of emergency may allow the country to be able to use private military companies, for example, otherwise known as mercenaries, which may not necessarily be the case if we were to go through the procedures and processes of the National Assembly. So some things may be suspended in order to accelerate the response of our military team against the insurgents. If that is what we mean by that, clearly defined, not a removal of the elected authority that is in Borno State today, then maybe it would find some support in anything that would assist us to address this rampaging insurgency. We must do, because it's not limited to Borno State. We'll be making a mistake if we do not draw a correlation between what is going on in Borno State and what is happening in other parts of the country. Banditry, kidnapping, militancy, they are inextricably intertwined. Some of the bandits, some of the insurgents that escaped from the Boko Haram territory, they are the ones prosecuting the banditry in the Northwest. Some of them are the ones involved in the kidnapping in the Southwest. ISWAP insurgents coming down from Sudan, from Niger, are involved in what is going on in areas affected by banditry. So we must take a holistic view of this. So how many states are you going to declare a state of emergency then?
Let's take a breather, Governor Fayemi. And up next on the program, we will learn more on the plans of the state governors on rescuing the country. Governor Kayode Fayemi, the chairman of the NGF, is still with us on the program. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back, everyone, and thank you so much for staying with us on the program. Let's continue our conversation with the governor of Ekiti State and the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, who is in our Abuja studio. Let's get your view, Governor Fayemi, on the PDP caucus in the House of Representatives. They've called on members of the Federal Executive Council to invoke the provisions of Section 144, subsection 1 of the Constitution to declare President Buhari incapable of ruling the country.
Sean, frankly, I mean, I thought you invited me here for a serious conversation, not for entertainment. I don't think that comment should be dignified with any serious response. I meet President Muhammadu Buhari from time to time on behalf of my colleagues, and there is nothing to suggest that the president is invalid or incapable of delivering on the responsibilities of his office. So I think when we want to discuss serious issues, our country has challenges, and let's deal with the challenges. We may have objective or subjective criticisms of the president. That's well within the realm of politics and public service, and I'm sure he doesn't mind that. However, when we want to do it, let's be constructive. It's the office of the president that you're denigrating when you do that. It's not his person.
They went further, Governor Fayemi. This is what they were saying. They said that they also want Nigerians to compel their representatives in the National Assembly to immediately commence impeachment proceedings against President Buhari for what they term gross incompetence and persistent and continuous breach of Section 14, subsection 2B of the 1999 Constitution. Let me quote what that says. The section provides that the security and welfare of the people shall be the primary purpose of government. The PDP caucus in the House of Reps have said that the president and the government has failed in this regard.
Again, Sheung, I think it's unfortunate that you would have senior politicians who I would like to think have garnered some level of experience before they were elected into office to be responsible in the way they conduct themselves. If PDP feels that their House of Rep caucus is empowered to start an impeachment proceedings, well, that's their own prerogative. They can go ahead and do whatever they want to do. But I think when we're talking about national security, it's a matter that goes beyond the realm of partisan politics. It is something that we all ought to give a very serious consideration. And if PDP has suggestions on how this should happen, I'm sure they have members in the Security and Intelligence Committee of the House. They have members in the Defense Committee, the Navy Committee, and the Air Force Committee. And they must have members in the Committee on Policing and Internal Security. I think it's well within their right to make contributions to those committees and also find a way to communicate their concerns to the executive branch of government, not to indulge in this pedestrian expletives which really do not add any value to dealing with the question of insecurity that we are all concerned about in the country. So I hope good sense will prevail in the PDP caucus.
What do you, in your view, Governor, could send a very strong message to those who think that maybe the president is not doing enough? Would an issue, for example, sacking the service chief, as you suggested tonight, be a decision that could satisfy some interest in the country who think that really nothing they can see suggests that the president or the government is doing something?
Again, Sheung, we must be careful the words we use. I have not recommended the sacking of service chiefs. And if I were in that position that you've proposed, my approach to it would be entirely different. I think the service chiefs, they've served the country well. They've given of the best. They've been committed. I know them personally, and I know how well they are committed to ensuring that we get rid of this insurgency. But the point I was making is that if you have done something, the same thing for 5 years, and you've even gone beyond your retirement age, of course, once you're a service chief, you may argue that there's no retirement age, but the military has protocols, the military has processes, and from time to time, one of the really important considerations is renewal of the leadership. And I think my approach would be for Mr. President to ask them to even, in their role as service chiefs and as chief of defense staff who understand this military well, who know their men very well, to even be the one that will suggest some of the best men that may step into their shoes. It's not about sacking them. It's about transitioning them out of their current responsibilities and then into retirement. I'm sure a part of me even feels that there may be some of them that would rather exit now, but they wouldn't want to be seen as jumping ship if they've not been directed to do so by Mr. President. But you know, I am not the president of Nigeria. The president is well within his rights to determine how he wants to address this. Our own, as governors and his field commanders in the 36 states, is to let him know the feelings of our people about security in the country. And that we will do when we have the meeting.
Great. So let's look at some issues relating to the decision of the governors. The governors are planning on borrowing about 17 trillion naira from the pension funds for what you have tagged infrastructural development. Could you give us a justification for this borrowing plan?
Sure. First, let me say that you took that information out of a statement voluntarily issued by the governors of Nigeria. It was not an exclusive discovery by channels or any other media organization. At the end of our meeting, for reasons of transparency, we issued a statement making it clear that we've come to a conclusion that if we must rev up infrastructural development in our states and at the federal level, we must look at alternative means beyond what is in the budget of Nigeria. In the 2021 Appropriation Act, Sheung, the military that has the highest allocation is the Ministry of Works and Housing, with about over 400 billion. 400 billion shown today is less than $1 billion. Between 2014 and 2019, shown, I wouldn't even go to a country outside Africa. Egypt constructed 4,800 kilometers of road and spent in the region of about $10 billion. And the bulk of that came from the private sector. So we have said the way to go is to look at options that would enable us to undertake infrastructure development by accessing funding from private sector. One such private sector funding is the pension fund, which is sitting in various pension finance administrators. And this money is already being borrowed by other elements. There is no reason why state governments cannot access it, especially when they're going to be making available an irrevocable standing payment order for it. The only attraction that we see in this, which brought us to this conclusion at the National Economic Council, is that it's going to be at a much more competitive, lower rate of about 9% for what we want to access from the pension fund and 5% for what we want to access from the infra credit, which is a vehicle by the Central Bank of Nigeria, all private sector determined. And there is nothing wrong. And we're not going to be apologetic about saying we want to borrow to fund infrastructure. We're not borrowing for consumption. And the various projects that are going to be allowed to access this fund have also been determined by the committee that we set up responsible for this at the National Economic Council. So you would see that the very way we talked about it at the Governors Forum level, His Excellency the Vice President also mentioned it in his webinar last week when he was discussing infrastructure. So there is nothing that is out of the ordinary in what is being proposed. In order for us to focus on things that are much more people-driven and that require our immediate public service commitment, like education, like healthcare, we feel we should spend money that we have on those, whilst we figure out a way to have public-private partnership to address this. Why should it take us 10 years to construct 120 kilometers of road from Lagos to Ibadan? And it has taken Egypt, which is in Africa, 5 years to construct 4,800 kilometers of road. This is not fiction. Google what I'm telling you. You will find it.
Governor Fayemi, the issue that some people, actually some interested parties are raising here is the issue of fiscal responsibility, alleged mismanagement of funds at the state level. I mean, some people who are not happy about this plan are saying that considering, for example, a recent report on the state of Nigerian states show that about 8 states of the Federation, including your state in Ekiti, are in distress, and this they hinge on the fact that some of these states have misplaced priorities and rising debts. And these states, the state governors or the state government are thinking of borrowing this humongous money.
When you are elected into public office, it's on the back of a program that you've shared with the people that made them believe in you to elect you into office. There is no doubt that the recurrent expenditure that many states are carrying is huge. And there's also no doubt that there is a basis for a cost of governance reduction. That's not in doubt. But if you want governments that you've elected into office to provide amenities that are in dire need by the citizens, you certainly do not expect these governors to use private funds or personal funds to do this. They're going to look for creative ways to ensure that they meet the demands of the populace. So, and what are those ways? Multilateral funding, maybe if they have a good relationship, World Bank, African Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, in terms of development financing, private sector borrowing. That in and of itself does not detract from fulfilling the conditions of the Fiscal Responsibility Act, because the Debt Management Office will not even allow some states that are distressed, as you're calling it, to access private or external borrowing if they have gone beyond the threshold given to them as states. So that fear is misplaced, and it is not something that we should even bother. I guess it's something that has come out of lack of knowledge on the part of people who argue that way. The bottom line is, Nigeria is not the rich country we make it out to be. Either at the federal level or at the state level, we do not have enough resources to run the country. We are also challenged in fulfilling the promises made to the people. Not because states don't want to do it or the federal government does not want to do it, but because the resources are not necessarily there, and we have to look for means of making the resources available. Many of the projects that we're talking about are projects that would lead to, that we refer to as revenue generating infrastructure. Roads that could be tolled, telecom projects, infrastructure around power, water projects. So these are things that are necessary infrastructure in order for us to improve our human development indices.
All right, Governor Fayemi, we're due for
borrowing is not necessarily a bad thing in that request.
All right, let's take another breather. So when we come back, there's some other, we get our closing moments with you, and perhaps we will talk some politics when we return. Don't go anywhere. We probably also will be switching gears after our conversation with Governor Fayemi, and we focus on the by-elections in 11 states of the Federation on Saturday. The umpire, INEC, will be speaking to us. Stay with us, everyone. Thank you so much, everyone. Let's get our closing moments with the chairman of the Nigerian Governors Forum and Governor of Ekiti State, Governor Kayode Fayemi, in our Abuja studio. Let's talk politics for the next few minutes that we have left. In the 2023 presidential conversation, your name has come up severally as one that could fly the APC flag. Is that part of the consideration that you have, or an ambition that you're considering to run for the #1 office in 2023?
Shane, you're very familiar with my politics. I would like to think you know that I have unfinished business in Ekiti, and my priority, my preoccupation right now is to finish well. All this talk about 2023, we don't even know who will be alive in 2023. We pray that we'll all be alive, but for now, I have a job of work at hand. I have been elected to deliver, and as I've just been telling you, there are challenges that I must ensure that I deliver on. So this speculation and analysis of who is in and who is out and who wants to replace the president is better left at the realm of conjecture.
So that's off the table for you. Even if you're offered or if you're called to take up that responsibility, you don't have such intent at all.
I will cross that bridge when I get there, Sean.
All right, well, I've heard that so many times with politicians when they say, when we get to the bridge, we'll cross it. But part of the reasons Governor David Umahi joined your party, the APC, is that his former party, PDP, according to him, was hostile to the Southeast region and have been treated unfairly. Do you hold the view that the Southeast region should be given a shot, especially on the platform of your party in 2023?
Frankly, those who know me, Sean, will tell you that I am not an advocate of zoning in political realm. I understand why those who feel marginalized would want that to happen. I also understand that in a country that is multicultural, that is multi-religious, multi-ethnic, one of the equilibrating mechanisms is to ensure that those in leadership represent the mosaic that the country is. So that for me is not something to be confused about. And I'm also very strongly of the view that excellent Nigerians come from all parts of Nigeria, and there is no place where you're looking for qualified, purpose-driven leaders that you would not find. So if that's the reason why Governor David Umahi has come to the party, I mean, it's very well within his rights to aspire to be president. But I've heard from Governor David Umahi directly, and he has made it very clear that that's not is not because he's seeking any presidential ticket. Sheung, I was in charge of the party primaries in APC in 2014. If you remember. And in that party primary, there were candidates from North and candidates from South who contested. And eventually, candidate Muhammadu Buhari carried the day. So there's no reason why we are not going to find candidates from all parts of Nigeria when we get to that stage in 2023.
All right, we have 30 seconds to wrap up this conversation, and I'd like you to conclude your thoughts on the politics of your party and 2023. Recently, the Minister of Works, Babatunde Fashola, was quoted to have said that the APC should honor its agreement on zoning, one that the Kaduna State Governor, Nasir El-Rufai, corroborated on this program a few days ago. Is there such an agreement within your party that in 2023, power must return to the South, specifically where in terms of the zoning? In 30 seconds, if you may.
Both Babatunde Raji Fashola and Nasir El-Rufai are very good friends of mine. We all served in the strategic committee of the APC, leading to that period that you have spoken about. You don't expect me to contradict what I know to be correct in what they're saying. So that's not something to be contradicted.
Governor Kayode Fayemi, Chairman of the Governors Forum and Governor of Ekiti State, thank you so much indeed for your time tonight on the program.
Thank you.
So let's switch gears now and focus on the by-elections in 11 states of the Federation. The umpire, INEC, has reacted to some of the developments. The Commission said in a statement today, and I quote part of that statement, they say, although the elections went generally well, the Commission regrets that some unscrupulous persons are still bent on disrupting the process. In some areas, staff of the Commission were assaulted and materials destroyed. Let's hear from the Director of Voter Education and Publicity at INEC, Mr. Nick Dazang, who joins us now from Abuja. Thank you so much, Dazang, for your time tonight. Let's get a view of what is happening. Perhaps, I think we should start from Imo State, where there seems to be some confusion. The Commission has not been able to finalize or say which candidate carries the day there. What is the position of INEC in the situation of things? in Imo?
Thank you very much. The Commission conducted the 15 by-elections across 11 states, and we conducted these elections in 6 senatorial elections and 9 state constituency elections across the 6 geopolitical zones. And the elections went well, but we also had some glitches and some challenges, particularly in Bayelsa, Imo, and Zamfara states. As we speak, all the results have been announced, except in Zamfara, where we intend to conclude the elections on Wednesday, 9th December in 14 polling units, where we had incidents of violence and overvoting. And of course, one of the senatorial districts in Bayelsa State, where we are doing the collation now, and God willing, between now and in the small hours of tomorrow morning, we should be able to return the results for the 2 senatorial districts in Bayelsa. But recall also that before the conduct of the elections on Saturday, we had a swath or slew of court orders. And particularly for Imo, where you mentioned, the Court of Appeal ordered that the candidate, whoever candidate is for the APC, should be restored, to contest the election. So, whereas we have the outcome based on the political party that has won the election, we are yet to announce this specific candidate. And that is based on the law. And we have always insisted that the Commission will always, as a principle, abide by court orders, because the Commission itself is predicated and is a product of the Constitution and the Electoral Act.
All right.
And it will not do anything to subvert or to scupper the laws or the guidelines as initiated by the Constitution or the Electoral Act.
Maybe you can, in 30 seconds, Mr. Design, can give us a clarity of what is happening in Zamfara State, where the PDP is saying that they have no confidence in the chief returning officer. In fact, the APC, on the other hand, has threatened that they might have to boycott the election with what they saw on Saturday. What is the situation of things from the INEC point of view?
Thank you very much. I just spoke a few minutes ago to the administrative secretary in charge of Zamfara State. And it is very clear to us that there are incidents of violence in 14 polling units. And because of these incidents of violence and overvoting and other acts that are untoward, it is not possible for us to announce the conduct of elections in those 14 polling units. And the 14 polling units are so critical to the outcome of the election. And by our principle of lead of margin, we need to go back and conduct the elections in those 14 polling units with a view to determining the winner of the conduct of the election in Bakura State constituency. So that is where we are at. And it is interesting that even though we have complaints by some of the political parties being labeled in the media, the INEC office in Zamfara State is yet to receive any complaint or any petition by any of the political parties that have been mentioned by the media. And I just spoke, like I said, with the administrative secretary in charge of Zamfara State, and they are yet to receive any complaints. But like I said, the commission is a responsible one, and it would always listen to whichever complaints we receive and act accordingly on the basis of these complaints. But what we intend to do is to go back on Wednesday, 9th December, to conclude the elections in those 14 polling units in Zamfara State, and then in Bakura State constituency, and then at the end of the day, announce the winner of the contest in that particular state constituency. So that is where we are at. And I was also mentioning the case of Bayelsa West Senatorial District, where we have collated the results in 2 local government areas, and as we speak now, we are collating the results in the last local government area, and as soon as we do that, between now and the small hours of tomorrow morning, a winner by God's grace will be declared by the returning officer.
All right. Dr. Nick Dazang, the Director of Voter Education and Publicity at INEC, thank you for the updates you have given us on the state of things as regarding Saturday election. Thank you indeed for talking to us on Channels Television.
Thank you very much for having me.
And well, there you have it, everyone. Your Sunday politics dosage for the week. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Sean Kimbale. Bye-bye.